is IndyCar Radio on the IMS Radio Network.
Green flag is in the air. Pedro Hita gets shoved down nearly into pit lane. He'll drop to about 6th or 7th. Here comes Ed Jones. Jones to the outside. Michael Young, he'll clear him into turn number 1.
For the final time, our points leader goes around. Ed Jones just got by Dean Stoneman. Now Stoneman starting to take a look to the inside. Further back, Sorrellis battling with Kellen. So it's Jones. Then it's the machine of Stoneman, and third, Shelby Blackstock to Jake Query for the final time.
Each time that Ed Jones and Dean Stoneman have swapped the lead, the other's gotten it back. Now Stoneman's going to try the outside at turn number 3. Side by side into 3. Ed Jones to the bottom. Dean Stoneman to the top. Jones to the bottom line. Nick Yeoman coming at you out of turn number 4.
It may be another one of those thrilling Freedom 100 finishes. Side by side, Ed Jones, Dean Stoneman to the outside. They'll drag race. Stoneman gets him at the line. Stoneman grabs the win of the Freedom 100 by inches over Ed Jones as they go side by side across the yard of bricks.
Stay tuned for more on IndyCar Radio. The Verizon IndyCar Series on IndyCar Radio.
Green flag flies and we are underway in Mid-Ohio. Bourdais Newgarden with a drag race in turn number 4. Tony Kanaan tries to get to the inside and he spins. Tony Kanaan gets spun around and gets off in the dirt. Several cars working hard to try to avoid Tony Kanaan. We have a local caution in turn number 4.
Bourdais tries to close in now at the bottom of the keyhole on those fresher reds. Sebastian Bourdais stalking in on Ryan Hunter-Reay. Hunter-Reay trying to hold him up through 3.
Leaders at the start-finish line, or I should say the starting line. It's a side-by-side drag race. Hunter-Reay to the inside. The high side is Sebastian Bourdais. Bourdais will grab the spot into turn number 4.
Joseph Newgarden hits his marks, although there was already, the jack came down. This is going to be a costly stop for Joseph Newgarden.
This is IndyCar Radio on the IMS Radio Network.
Yeah, we're getting ready for Graham Rahal, guys. We've got a bunch of them coming in right here. The big key right now getting in and out because, as you said, those guys that came in earlier were able to pick up a bunch of positions. As we get the leaders going by us right now, we'll send it out to Nick Yeoman in a second as Will Power gets set to come right in. Graham Rahal diving into his pits right now. He goes from red to a fresh set of blacks. Looks like a good stop for Rahal. Let's go down to Nick Yeoman.
Yeah, it's Will Power who gave up the lead. He was lead first off of pit lane. Ryan Hunter-Reay a second. Well, right at pit exit, Marco Andretti drove up the racetrack right into the side of Sebastian Bourdais. There is debris littered all over pit exit. Sebastian Bourdais upset.
Back to green flag racing, side by side across the start-finish line. Jake Query, they head to UNY.
Alex Tagliani had a podium here in 2006, but right now he's going to lose the lead to Ryan Briscoe. Briscoe to the inside of the 77 through 1.
Holy cow, baby. Everybody attacking as Ryan Briscoe makes the move underneath, but we've got 10, 12 cars right there in the bunch. Ryan Hunter-Reay grabs P2 from Alex Tagliani. He got to the inside, coming down Seaside Way, climbed on the binders a little later. Oh, and how about turn number 1, Jake Query?
Will Power has moved past Alex Tagliani, so Will Power now sets his sights. Ryan Briscoe, though, building himself a healthy lead out front.
The Verizon IndyCar Series on IndyCar Radio. from the streets of Long Beach. This is the Verizon IndyCar Series on the Advance Auto Parts IndyCar Radio Network.
An historic event, most assuredly. It's famous throughout the world. For the 43rd time, racers converge upon Long Beach, California. We're preparing for the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. Hello, everyone. I'm Mark Janes. This is the type of weekend that, for those of us who do this on a regular basis, it's hard to convince our friends and family and loved ones that this is actually a job. Happy to be joined in the broadcast booth by the sports director of the ABC affiliate in Indianapolis, Indiana, WRTV Channel 6, and a member of this radio network, a proud one at that. Hello, Dave First. Welcome to Long Beach.
Well, good morning if you're out on the West Coast, and good afternoon if you're out on the East Coast. How gorgeous is this? And how lucky and how fortunate is this series to start on the streets of St. Pete, which is gorgeous, then come out here to the streets of Long Beach. Historic Long Beach. It's great to be back.
25 days, in fact, and you talk about history. You were part of an event last night involving one of the greats of all time in all forms of motorsports, Emerson Fittipaldi.
Yeah, it was the annual RRDC Road Racing Drivers Club. A little stuffy. I don't know how I got invited to this thing, but it was a lot of fun. Emerson Fittipaldi was honored, and then they brought up the great Dan Gurney and A.J. Foyt 50 years after they won at Le Mans. In the 24 hours there, it was a great night, and you had to keep your head on a swivel seeing all these drivers left and right. It was a lot of fun, but they're all back here, and they're all talking about how exciting this weekend is.
25 days have passed. Some bemoan that fact since we wrapped up the race at St. Petersburg. Sebastian Bourdais, your winner, and the St. Petersburg resident, really started with a pretty impressive run. Dale Coyne doing what he has done over the past couple of years, and with regularity, quite frankly, making a great call on pit strategy to get his driver out front, and then the crew kept him there.
Got the caution in the right time as well. There was a little luck involved, but a lot of skill too. And you look at Sebastian Bourdais and what he's done with his team. And remember, Craig Hampson is back with him. This is the guy, his engineer, that was with him back in the old Champ Car World Series days when he won 4 championships in that series. So there's certainly a lot of chemistry there that was already built up from then. It's back now, and you can tell. I mean, already it's paying dividends on these race courses. And just a couple days ago, these guys tested out in Sonoma. Guess who was P1 there? Sebastian Bourdais.
Not been easy for defending series champions to defend. Simon Pagenaud got that effort off to a pretty good start at St. Pete. Dave and I will talk more about that as this 45-minute session continues. But first of all, I want to welcome in our pit reporters. Let's start first with Nick Yeoman.
It is a 45-minute session, Mark Janes, and we expect it to be a busy one at that. 2 practice sessions today for the Verizon IndyCar Series. And the good news is the weather looks like it's going to be absolutely perfect throughout the course of this weekend. A Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 3-day weekend for the IndyCar Series for the 43rd annual Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. Right now, down here on pit lane, ambient temperature is at 62 degrees. Feels a little bit warmer with that beautiful sunshine bearing down here on the front stretch where we're located. Track temperature's up around 81 degrees. The IMSA Sports Car Series, they just spent about 2 hours on track laying down some rubber and practicing. So this track, of course, changes throughout the course of the weekend. The nice thing that's not going to change, Mark, is the weather. Going to be beautiful all weekend here in Long Beach.
Nick will be in the booth with us this weekend during a session, but most of the weekend he will be perched high atop the hairpin, the signature portion of this race course, turn number 11. Also out on the course for most of the weekend. He'll be a busy guy. He literally has them coming and going. We're talking about Jake Query, but for this session, Jake has set up shop down on pit road, and Jake, as is always the case in the first session of the weekend, basically an install lap, and then pit road gets very busy again.
It does get busy, Mark. It's great to be here. I'll tell you the one thing that always jumps out at me each and every year when we come to Long Beach, and it's a storyline that typically doesn't necessarily, for most of these teams, become a big factor. But if you have a big issue, it can be. It seems like I mention this every year. This is the most narrow pit road that we go to over the course of the season in terms of this, of course, being a regular street. And just behind, over the wall, you've got the curbing and then sidewalks. And so it's very, very, very tight in case for some reason a team would have to bring any sort of an issue, a part of a car or some over the course of a weekend, had to bring something out during the course of the race, it would become very, very tight. It's kind of like Los Angeles traffic at times back here. There's a lot of activity on this pit road. Of course, the order in which these cars are lined up is the qualifying order from what we saw at St. Petersburg. keep in mind that means not necessarily a good thing for Sebastian Bourdais, who started at the back of that field. You always want to make sure that you have the cleanest exit possible on pit road. But it's great to be here at Long Beach in what is going to be a fantastic weekend. And Nick Yeoman, let's face it, when it comes to the weather, we have a pretty good idea every year what it's going to be, and yet again today, it's exactly that. Sunny and clear, awfully nice in Southern California.
Yeah, beautiful weather, and we've got some beautiful race cars on the track. We've got some beautiful race car designs that were released about a week and a half ago. Bill Pappas joins me down here on pit lane. Bill's the Vice President of Competition and Race Engineering for the Verizon IndyCar Series, and part of that job includes chassis and engine development for the series moving forward. Bill, on March 29th, a little over a week ago, IndyCar released some images of a work in progress concept design for a universal body kit for the entire field to use in 2018. Those images, quite frankly, met with overwhelming support. A lot of fans, drivers, media members alike, really impressed with those designs. I want to ask you about the process of putting this new car together, but first, your reaction to everyone else's response. I'm sure that has to be a nice boost for you and the team moving forward.
Absolutely, we're very excited about the reception that the design's gotten from the public. You know, as Jay calls it, it's a little bit of a retro type of design. Gets it back to the way Indy cars we think they ought to look. We're very, very excited about how the public's responded. The drivers have all commented they're very excited at how it looks. So, yeah, it's been a big boost to us, and we're very excited going forward.
Now, obviously, designing a sleek and cool-looking race car is important, but I know for your team, that's just one box that you have to check in terms of rolling out a brand-new race car. When you guys started this process, what are a few things that were really key that you wanted to focus on with designing this new race car?
Well, the big part was trying to get the downforce generated from the bottom of the car. With the advent of the aero kits, a lot of wings and winglets were designed and very well done for generating lots of downforce, but the drivers all commented that they'd rather have the downforce off the bottom of the car, so we concentrated on getting that back as the primary way to generate downforce.
Bill Pappas joins us here on Pit Lane on IndyCar Radio. He's the Vice President of Competition and Race and Engineering for the Verizon IndyCar Series. All right, moving forward, when can we expect for some race car drivers to get behind the wheel to begin testing? And maybe when are they going to see a show car or a physical concept of this race car?
Well, we're hoping that, early summer that we'll get the car out and get people to see it, and then testing should start shortly thereafter, and we're trying to make sure that we hit all four types of or disciplines that we'll race on. We'll go to this Indianapolis for a test. We'll test at a short oval and a couple of road courses to make sure we get all the details covered as far as where this car is going to run.
Final thing I want to ask you, Bill, what's this been like personally for you? Because you've got more than 30 years in this sport. A lot of it spent turning wrenches, engineering, strategizing for teams like Ganassi, KV, Coyne, up and down pit lane. I would imagine this has to be a bit of a labor and love for you and your team to be able to put your fingerprints on the direction of this series technically.
Absolutely. As I keep trying to tell everybody that's involved, it's our opportunity to set the direction of where IndyCar goes, and we're very, very excited about the future of IndyCar racing. We just wanted to produce, a product that was worthy of where we think the competition and the series is at.
Bill, appreciate your time. Great work so far. Good to see you.
Thank you very much.
That is Bill Pappas down here on Pit Lane, the Vice President of Competition and Race Engineering. Mark, of course, those images of that new car. Of course, it's a working concept, or a work in progress, I should say. That concept design, you can see them on IndyCar's website, on Twitter, all across social media. Very, very popular, cool-looking race car. And it certainly seems like Bill Pappas and his crew have done a great job. And moving forward, can't wait to see how that car tests. And a lot of these drivers fired up to see those images of that race car released about a week ago.
I want to thank Vice President of Communications Kurt Cavan for his assistance in getting Bill on with us so quickly to talk a little bit about that. And again, just to echo those sentiments, Dave, the images that were released, boy, a lot of people awfully excited to see that race car on track.
It's headed in a positive direction when every driver hops on social media and says how cool it is. Drivers don't agree on everything anytime, let alone when it comes to concepts of cars, but universally, up and down pit road, they are all enthralled with this new design, safety-wise, concept-wise, and it's hard to believe it's going to be next year. This thing's going to be on the race course.
Simon Pagenaud, we mentioned before we got to our conversation with Bill Pappas that, you want to get out of the box strong when you're looking to defend a championship. I think you go all the way back to Sam Hornish before you find anybody that won one back-to-back in this series. It's been a while anyway. But Simon Pagenaud, Dave, certainly got off to a pretty good start, finishing runner-up. He's 12 points behind Sebastien Bourdais. As we head into Long Beach this weekend.
Yeah, the thing about Pagenaud, and I was in his pit box at St. Pete, didn't exactly have the qualifying run that he wanted, but he and Kyle Moyer and Ben Bretzman, they stuck with it throughout the course of the race and had a tremendous start to the season. I think a lot of these drivers, they're looking for a little redemption, perhaps, this weekend, namely, Will Power, who had some ECU issues towards the end of St. Pete. He finished 19th. Graham Rahal, of course, got caught up in that first lap contact with Charlie Kimball. And then he had some miscommunication on pit road, and so all of a sudden he's finishing 17th. He's starting way back in points here in the 2017 Verizon IndyCar season. And Tony Kanaan, who had some contact with Michaela Lotion, so he finished 12th. And even his teammates, Kimball was 18th, and Max Schilton didn't have the finish that he wanted either. So outside of Scott Dixon, Chip Ganassi Racing is looking to make up some ground here this weekend.
2001, 2002 is when Sam Hornish Jr. went back-to-back with Panther Racing and securing a championship. I think at no other time in this series, at least since I've been covering it, well, I'll tell you what, you win this championship, not only, as we've said before, you're going to have to master a lot of different disciplines in places like St. Petersburg and Long Beach, and then you look at Watkins Glen and Sonoma, and then you add Gateway into the mix this year, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Texas, Iowa, all of those places. But you got a pretty talented paddock that you have to leapfrog over to get that championship at the end of the season as well.
We were just talking about Kanaan trying to make up some ground from a couple of weeks ago. Charlie Kimball also trying to make up some ground. Guess who's 1-2 right now on the speed chart? It's early, I know, but Kanaan P1 and Charlie Kimball second quick right now. Honda's, in fact, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 right now with Aloshin, Alexander Rossi, and Takuma Sato rounding out that top 5.
Handful of drivers know the quick way around here. Sebastien Bourdais has won this race, in fact, 3 times. Elio Castroneva has been to victory lane, as has been Scott Dixon. Ryan Hunter-Reay is a former champion here, along with Simon Pagenaud. Will Power, a 2-time winner here, and Takuma Sato also picked up a win here. So, again, 15 minutes into this 45-minute session. First of the weekend, Tony Kanaan, Mikel Aloshin, Alexander Rossi, Charlie Kimball, and Takuma Sato, your top 5 here on the streets of Long Beach.
You can't take a 700-horsepower IndyCar out on the road, but you can take the tires. The new Firehawk high-performance tires from Firestone are built with racing-inspired technology and have better wet and dry handling than ever before. Now the only thing missing is a pit crew.
Hi, Dad.
Well, that's a start. Find your perfect Firehawk performance tire at your local Firestone retailer. Whatever you drive a Firestone.
When you first hear it, you move to the edge of your seat. Then it starts. You begin to feel your heart in your throat, and the speed causes an unfamiliar surge of adrenaline. The fastest drivers in the world, Castroneves, Andretti, Rahal, Hinchcliffe, are coming to Barber Motorsports Park April 21st through 23rd. This is the Honda Indy Grand Prix of Alabama, presented by America's First. And this is the Indy Experience. Purchase your tickets today at barberracingevents.com.
Just a little under 2 miles in length, the 11-turn temporary street course here in Long Beach, California. Sunday's race, 85 laps, 167 miles. A push to pass parameters for this weekend, 200 seconds of total time, with a maximum time of 20 seconds per activation. 6 sets of primary Firestones, 4 sets of alternates. We don't think we're going to need the wets. Chance for rain late tonight, Dave. into mid-morning tomorrow, but we think that race day should be like today, picture perfect.
If 85 laps sounds different than last year, it is 5 laps further this time around. They're trying to force a third pit stop in the race come Sunday, make things a little bit more interesting come race day. But interesting, 85 laps. So we got 5 more laps in us on Sunday.
Turn number 6, it looked like the rear end stepped down on the 14 of Carlos Munoz, and he may have gently nudged that outside retaining wall, but he was able to continue on. And, Dave, you've been watching your driver analyst for the month of May for your coverage at RTV6 in Indianapolis, Tony Kanaan. He's been using all of the racetrack during this session.
Yeah, every inch of it. In fact, he went off in the runoff in turn 8 or Pine Avenue, if you're familiar with the Long Beach area, and then brushed the wall just a couple moments after that as well. So TK is pushing it right now. Fast time at a minute 8.2 around this 11-turn, 1.9 mile street circuit. Tony Kanaan quickest, though, right now at a minute 8.2. Alexander Rossi in the number 98 Napa Auto Parts Honda, second quick right now.
Elio Castro Neves was last year's Verizon P1 award winner. His time, a minute 6.6294 in April of 2015 is
the years ago,
record here. And so Elio, a perennial favorite, almost at every racetrack that we go to. And, it's interesting to note that Elio, Kanaan, those guys continue to be part of the conversation in terms of who may have plans to maybe alter their professional course a little bit to make room for some of the young guns. But TK and Elio, I don't get the feeling they're interested in going away anytime soon.
Certainly not Elio. You talk to him, and he's good to go, it seems like, for several years. And Kanaan's getting more and more questions about what his future is going to be next year, the year after that. But I can tell you this, that if he does drop out full-time in the Verizon IndyCar Series, he still has a desire to race in the Indianapolis 500. He still wants to stick around and do, the greatest drive at the greatest race course in the world. But those questions are creeping up, and some of the young guys that are involved, certainly in Indy Lights, are keeping an eye on what is happening between Elio and Kanaan as well.
Well, we talk about for the 43rd time they've had racing here at Long Beach. If you go back to the kart banner in 1984, Dave, the Unzers and Andretti's were a little stingy. From 84 through 1985, either Al Jr., Mario, or Michael won every year with the exception of 2. Danny Sullivan won it in 92, Paul Tracy in 1993. Vassar snuck one in there in 96, then Zanardi went back-to-back. Tracy won here a couple of times, in fact, 4, I believe. And, you go through the media center and you walk around, and this is one of those places, even though it's a temporary circuit, Dave, you can feel the history when you're here. And the respect that this community in particular has for this event.
Even before IndyCar came here in 84, I mean, you go back to when this place ran Formula One cars here. I mean, any place that where Clay Regazzoni has won a race or Niki Lauda has won a race. There's some big. I mean, Mario won in Formula One here back in the early 80s. So the place has a lot of history. And to me, I know the Masters is going on the other coast right now. This, to me, is a major for the IndyCar Series as well.
The 18 of Ed Jones with a wide swing off a turn, and he may have brushed the outside retaining wall with that left side of that race car. Maybe caught that left rear just a little bit. So Ed Jones right now on the speed chart, 16th quick. As we watch Ed Jones make his way down that long main straightaway, we'll go back to pit road, check in with Jay Query.
Matter of fact, right here in the pit of Ed Jones, team pretty relaxed right now, waiting for that 18 to come back in, so we'll see what might have happened just in terms of any damage. One of the things, Mark, that I think is pretty routine in Long Beach or any of the street courses that we go, for those that are listening that may not actually know the difference between a street and a road course, if perhaps you're new listening to the Verizon IndyCar Series, a road course is a permanent fixture. It is the same. It is a place like Road America, or for that matter, Mid-Ohio, that is built specifically for racing. It is a venue for exactly that. Street courses like we have here at Long Beach and like we had at St. Petersburg utilize actual passenger streets like Shoreline Drive, which is the main straight, I should say, here in Long Beach. The difference being this, oftentimes not only does it mean you go from concrete to asphalt and different surfaces over a street course race, but from one year to the next, Mark, let's be honest, You don't know exactly how much the surface might have changed itself. Now, you don't get necessarily the weather and the potholes in Long Beach that you get in the Midwest or the East Coast, but that said, teams have a pretty good idea of the telemetry and data in terms of the balance and setup of the car from a year ago, but there are some conditions that might have changed a little bit over the course of the year on a street course. So what we're seeing right now is the teams coming in and just readjusting the springs on the front of the car, maybe making a fine tweak here or there on the balance of the race car based on the telemetry and the data that they'd had from a year before and how it might need to be changed. Still waiting on Ed Jones, by the way. Mark, I'll let you know when he gets in here, and we'll let you know if there's any damage to that 18 machine for Dale Coyne.
Thanks, Jake. Good stuff. Want to say hello to Scott Martin, meteorologist for AlabamaWeather.com. Scott enjoying what we do while he works today. Scott, you can follow him at RaceWX4U on Twitter. And, Dave, he actually provides the weekend weather forecast at all of the venues that we go to. And I know he listens to us on a regular basis, and we wanted to give a shout-out to Scott. He and I touched base a couple of weeks ago, and we might get together when we get to Barber here in a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Look forward to that.
Yeah.
Although when you come to Long Beach,
yeah,
when you're an L.A. weatherman,
yeah, that's not a tough gig. I bet Alabama's a bit more challenging.
Well,
for Scott
certainly in the spring, absolutely.
To call the weather forecast there. But P1, Sebastian Bourdais continues. Tony Kanaan, Alexander Rossi, James Hinchcliffe, Ray Hall, Andretti, Aloshin, Castro Neves, Sato, and Kimball, your top 10. Scott Dixon is 11th quick. Speaking of the 9 machine, we watch him into turn number 1. And, boy, I tell you what, that car got plenty wide. Well, we think a rising star in open-wheel racing is here this weekend. I know he'd rather be in a race car, but he is at the very least at a racetrack. Nick Gilman, you've caught up with Colton Herta.
I don't know how you can describe this young man as anything but a rising star. Our Indy Lights points leader, Colton Herta, joins us here on pit lane at Long Beach. First of all, I want to talk about that debut weekend at St. Petersburg. A second race one, a dominating win in race number 2. You've taken to these Indy Lights cars pretty well, I'd say.
Yeah, it was a lot more than we expected. We came in. It's my rookie season. I've never been around St. Pete, and to do what we did was really spectacular. And it set the bar for the season, and now we gotta follow it up in Barber.
You just celebrated a birthday, correct? No longer can we say a 16-year-old in the Indy Lights Series. Still a 17-year-old points leader. That's pretty impressive. How was the birthday?
It was good. Yeah, I was celebrating with my family, and it was good to have some time with my family to celebrate my birthday away from the track.
Next up for the Indy Lights Series, you guys will be back in action at Barber Motorsports Park. I would imagine looking forward to that with the start of the season being as positive as it was for you guys.
Yeah, it's now just about maintaining. We have the points lead. Now we just have to maintain it and get as many points out of the weekend as we can.
How has this the Steinbrenner-Andretti partnership gone so far? That was really one of the more positive stories during the offseason to bring in that iconic Steinbrenner name and that family involved in motorsports. I would imagine that they're going to be pretty positive as well from them.
Oh, it's been working great. George Michael Steinbrenner, the team owner, which is Hank's son who owns the Yankees, he's been doing a great job. He's been running the team, and it's been working out amazingly. Great partner.
All right, Colton, we appreciate it. Good to see you this weekend. That's Colton Herta, the Indy Lights points leader. He's down here on the pit box, along with his dad, who, of course, is calling the shots this year for Marco Andretti. That United Fiber and Data car sits on pit lane right now. Not a lot of work going on, but Mark's certainly one of the unbelievable talents in the Indy Lights Series. I think we're going to have a good championship this year, but that may be one of the names to watch. Colton Herta, 17 years old, already a winner in Indy Lights and the points leader heading to Barber.
I own things that are 17. Dave, first,
Do you care to explain exactly what are 17 years old?
I mean, my goodness, he certainly is a rising star. Sounds a little like Dad when he's talking as well. I wonder if Brian, though, is lobbying with Doug Bowles, the president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, to have just the number 100 in the title somewhere for the month of May, because Brian seems to do pretty well. When whatever, it's the 100th whatever. At the
100th anniversary, of course, one with the late, great Dan Weldon, and last year the 100th Indy 500, one with Alexander Rossi.
Yeah, and we just saw Elio giving the shocks and springs a workover on that number 3 car.
A little brake dust and brake smoke coming out of the number 3 machine.
It was bumpy, though. Did you see? I mean, the front end of the car got off the ground.
It was really porpoising as it tried to go through some braking, and I'll tell you what, Castroneves working his way up the speed chart right now at a minute 8.4. He was towards the back of the field just now as we follow him here on IndyCar Radio and IndyCar.com. He's up to 7th quick right now in that Chevrolet.
As if the challenge weren't enough sometimes with it seems as though that blue is the most popular color in the paddock. Don't let your eyes don't want you to think your eyes are playing tricks on you. The livery's identical this weekend for Target. Listen to me, Target, for Chip Ganassi Racing.
Old habits are hard to break.
Anymore, yeah. But both TK and Scott Dixon are driving NTT data machines this weekend.
Yeah, the only slight difference is an orangish or red stripe down the side of Scott Dixon's number 9 Honda. And that's it. So between the two of them, it's very difficult to tell the 10 and the 9 apart. But kudos to NTT Data stepping up and putting their livery on the side of the Scott Dixon's car, who, of course, Dixon, a former champion here at Long Beach, won a couple of years ago in 2015. A
couple of guys that have worked their way into the top 5 now. The mayor of Hinchtown, James Hinchcliffe, is P1. Scott Dixon, 2nd. Sebastian Bourdais still in the top 5. He's P3. Ryan Hunter-Ray is 4th quick. TK is 5th quick. I saw, courtesy of IndyCar.com, a story posted on Twitter that Hinch and Ryan Hunter-Ray spent some time with the LAPD in a good way. We might add quickly. We don't want to scare you folks,
in a very good way.
But what went through the paces on their driving course, which I think makes sense for an IndyCar driver to take on that sort of challenge.
You would think they'd do pretty well with that.
Yeah, you would think, and I would imagine that if you can handle the streets of LA in a squad car, you could probably do well in an IndyCar and vice versa.
Let's face it, if you can handle the streets of LA in any car, you're doing pretty well.
More on that now from Pit Road with Nick Yeoman.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys happened to see the social media exchange. Ryan Hunter-Ray said he had a great time being able to drive those police cars and arrest James Hinchcliffe, and Hinch proceeded to say, yeah, but you didn't have to frisk me so genuinely. So, those guys had a really good time. There were some videos, as you mentioned, posted as they pulled off some of those cool pit maneuvers of spinning out police cars. Certainly a cool opportunity for both those guys. Simulators as well that the LAPD uses in terms of traffic stops and pursuits. Very cool technology. And I know those race car drivers, they like to go fast. It doesn't matter if it's a race car or a police car. So pretty cool for both of those guys to get that opportunity here just a couple days ago.
So 107.819. The mark, if you will, 6.8. That's a minute 8, 12.90 by Montoya in the first session 1 year ago. Juan Montoya in the 2 car, of course, now piloted by Joseph Newgarden. We are 30 minutes into this 45-minute session, the first of 2 we will have today. Jake Query, Nick Yeoman on Pit Road, Mark Janes and Dave First in the Firestone broadcast booth. This is the Advance Auto Parts IndyCar Radio Network.
Hi, I'm Mario Andretti. To promote the Firehawk Indy 500 tire, Firestone asked me to describe what it feels like to win the world's biggest race on Firestone tires. I would say it feels like vroom, 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 ba-dum, bum, 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 boom, boom, bum, bum. And that's pretty much it.
Whatever you drive a Firestone.
When you first hear it, you move to the edge of your seat. Then it starts. You begin to feel your heart in your throat, and the speed causes an unfamiliar surge of adrenaline. The fastest drivers in the world, Castroneves, Andretti, Rahal, Hinchcliffe, are coming to Barber Motorsports Park April 21st through 23rd. This is the Honda Indy Grand Prix of Alabama, presented by America's First. And this is the Indy Experience. Purchase your tickets today at barberracingevents.com.
Back on the streets of Long Beach, California, Jake Query here along with, of course, the Advance Auto Parts Verizon IndyCar Series, IndyCar Radio Network. Max Chilton has slowed down on course, gives us a chance to talk to the guy that walked away with the win in St. Petersburg. Dale Coyne watching the work done by Sebastian Bourdais and Ed Jones. Let's begin, Dale, with this. You win a race, and then obviously you got to kind of put everything aside and get ready to do it all over again. What about this track had you guys learned already? Because I saw when Bourdais came in, it looked like some pretty extensive work being done to that 18.
Yeah, no, just trying to tune it out a little bit. You know, he ran a good lap there, and So we're just trying to make him a little more comfortable in the car with what he needs.
We knew, obviously, Sebastian Bourdais' talent level, and it was an awesome performance in St. Petersburg. And it somewhat overshadowed to some people, I thought, what was really impressive for your other driver. I thought Ed Jones looked very, very good. Your impressions of him?
No, Ed did a great job. He's running fifth. We messed him up on the last stop a little bit, but he still ended up with a top 10 in a rookie race there. That was pretty good. So we're excited about this year a lot.
Lastly, what challenges does Long Beach present in terms of, look, everybody knows this track pretty well, but does it change from year to year?
It's going to be cooler this year. Usually we run here, it's a lot warmer. So that's going to change how you downforce, how you trim your car. So there's work to be done.
Both cars are back out there. I'll let you get back in touch with both your drivers. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Dale Coyne finds Sebastian Bourdais, the winner in St. Petersburg, right now in the top 5 of that speed chart. Came in, you can see that they did make some adjustments, Mark, just to the toe link, the springs on the car, the balance setup, and sent him back out just about 5 minutes ago.
I know it's all about championships. Everybody talks about the big three with Ganassi and Penske and Andretti Autosport. Maybe more so Penske, Ganassi the past couple of years, but and Andretti with their stable. Right on the cusp of being right there in the mix. I mean, all they did was win the Indianapolis 500 last year. But I think, you look at Ed Carpenter Racing, certainly Dale Coyne Racing, the changes that they've made at AJ Foyt, and they're going to get their legs underneath them with a switch to Chevy, most assuredly. Again, I think it just speaks to the balance, Schmidt, all those guys, Dave. I mean, it's a daunting task to win a championship here.
Well, you go back to St. Pete, and I think a lot of people just naturally thought, well, Sebastian didn't have a ride, so he went to Dale Coyne Racing. That wasn't the case at all. Mm-mm. He chose to go to Dale Coyne Racing. He saw something there. It's rekindled some old feelings and brought back again. Craig Hampson is with the team now. The guy that was with him for years in Champ Car. There's chemistry there. And Sebastian Bourdais, he hasn't won back-to-back races in 10 years. I think he's got a great shot this weekend to do that same thing here.
I mean, chemistry, as you know, with all the forms of sports that you cover, it is everything, period.
Sure.
I mean, talent goes a long way, no mistake about it. But there have been a lot of talented teams in professional sports history that haven't had a lot of success because they didn't have chemistry.
Again, Sebastian, he knew what he was getting himself into and knew exactly what he wanted out of a race car, out of a race team, and right now he's got that.
I mean, just think about how much better we'd be if we all liked one another. Can you think about that?
You want to air that out here right now?
Damage,
really?
Let's get it.
Okay.
Nick Yeoman, you're on pit road. Nick,
I have nothing to add to that conversation. I can switch it up a bit and talk about Max Chilton. As you guys mentioned, he slowed on the course, was able to bring that car back to pit lane. From what I saw, it didn't look like there was any damage to the race car. Once that Gallagher Honda made its way back to pit lane, the crew jumped over the wall and took a look at all four corners. Didn't even change tires on that car either. So something happened to Max, but no issues with that race car. He is pulled back out of pit lane, back onto the racetrack to continuing practicing here at Long Beach. But the report on the racetrack, Mark, is that car still may not fully be up to speed.
We'll certainly keep an eye on that. He's in the turn 9 right now, and he's Dave doing his darn well best just to stay out of everyone's way until they can milk it back to pit road.
He's trying to stay out of everybody's way, but that almost didn't happen earlier when James Hinchcliffe almost made contact with him, and then just moments ago it was another car too. But he's trying to limp that car around. Probably get back on pit road here momentarily.
Oh, and by the way, our good friend, legendary motorsports journalist Louis Frank, going to join us a little bit later on today here. Louis is listening, and he kind of, being a New York City native, takes exception to how difficult the streets of L.A. are to navigate. He says it's nothing compared to driving in New York City.
I'll give him that. Streets versus L.A. highways. How about that?
Well, Race Control is not happy with the pace that the 8 car, Max Chilton, has around the course. So with just a few minutes left in this session, they are giving him the black flag and asking him to come to pit road for some attention. We are 36 minutes into this session. So, just right around 10 minutes remaining in it. Sebastian Bourdais continues P1 then James Hinchcliffe, Ryan Hunter-Ray, Scott Dixon, Alexander Rossi, Simon Pagino, Graham Rahal, Tony Kanaan, Elio Castro Evans, and Will Power, your top 10. Aloshin, Newgarden, Munoz, Hildebrand, Andretti, the top 15. Sato, Kimball, Jones, Daly, Pickett, and Chilton. That's for those of you who might have that portion of your screen minimized, doing other things at work today and don't have timing and scoring up, or simply listening. Dave, continuing to recap the race on the streets of St. Petersburg, a big rebound for Ryan Hunter-Ray. Last year, a disastrous season for him, and I think to come home with a top 5, I think Ryan was all in all pretty pleased once the dust settled on that event.
And got around his teammate Takuma Sato there at the end to make up another spot, so he was excited about that as well. We saw earlier, if you're following along here on IndyCar.com, we saw the number 27 of Marco Andretti. Marco had a nice run back in St. Pete. Finished 7th there after starting 15th. He's got new livery as well. H.H. Gregg no longer on the number 27. Instead, it's the United Fiber and Data Company back with Andretti Autosports. So it's good to see those guys back as well. So Marco Andretti right now, 11th quick here with just under 10 minutes remaining here in this practice session.
The latest on Max Chilton from his pit box, Nick Yeoman.
Yeah, I just grabbed a quick word with Julian Robertson, who is the strategist on that number 8 Gallagher Honda for Max Chilton. He said they think it's an electrical issue. It's been going in and out. They think they have it fixed, though, but obviously the team a little dumbfounded because when they brought him back to pit lane, everything looked okay, and then as you guys mentioned, it went back onto the racetrack and slowed again. So as of right now, electrical issues, the problem on that Honda for Max Chilton.
A little bit further up pit road, let's check in with Jake Query.
Bruce Martin is here, as he is for each and every event, of course, for the Verizon app as well as Auto Week magazine. And Bruce, let's begin with this historic venue in Long Beach. What is it about this particular event that you think kind of just makes it pop, other than the fact it's 72 degrees and sunny out there?
To me, this is the Indy 500 of street course racing. It's got the history, the tradition, the glamour, and the longevity. This is the 43rd Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach, and the way political situations are, especially out here in California, I don't think you could create this race in today's political climate. It's really something special. It combines all the things that turn this into a big event. And the beautiful thing about it is this is really the second biggest race on the Verizon IndyCar Series schedule. In a lot of ways, it's IndyCar's version of Monaco.
You know, for me, the thing that's interesting when you look at this field, there are more than a handful of drivers that you feel like have to feel like this is a track that they have a pretty good handle. That's not to say it's an easy track, but Sebastian Bourdais has had success here. Will Power has been very good here. Ryan Hunter-Ray essentially secured a full-time ride by winning here. It just seems to me like we've got a wide open field in terms of guys that could control this weekend.
And if you're a great driver like Scott Dixon, it's a race that you have to add to your resume before your career is over. Interesting thing that I found out earlier, Bobby Rahal ran in 15 Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach, and Graham has competed in 10. Rahal has never gone to victory lane in this race. That's something that's really important to them. For them to even realize that number the way it is, you can tell Graham really wants to win this race.
Well, and you can guess when you think about the legacy of the Unsers and the Andrettis, you know, the Rahals don't want to be left out of that party, right?
Definitely not. And when you look at the great names that have raced here, Mario Andretti ran here in Formula One. He won a lot of the early kart races here. Michael Andretti was a great driver here. The Unsers, Al Unser Jr., King of the Beach, as they called him when he competed out here. This is a glamour event on the schedule, and it's really an opportunity for the stars in Hollywood to come out and be a part of the action, which I think elevates the Verizon IndyCar Series to an even more glamorous level.
What did you think in terms of the early images that we've seen of the new car that is being right now worked on for the Verizon IndyCar Series?
It definitely looks like what we think an IndyCar looked like when we were growing up. That's what they looked like. The great cars of the late 80s. The 1990s, they had some beautiful cars back then.
They had riding mechanics when you were growing up, Bruce. Let's be honest. It looks like the cars when I grew up.
Yes, exactly. But this was like what a lot of people thought an IndyCar was supposed to look at. I'm not quite to the riding mechanic days, but I do remember the front-engine roadsters.
All right, lastly, tell me about what things you're working on, what people can look for from you over the next couple of events here?
Had a chance to have lunch with Emerson Fittipaldi yesterday, and even at 70 years old, there's an air of greatness that this man brings into whatever room he comes in. One of the great drivers of his era, one of the great drivers of all time. And actually, other things to look at is just what makes this race IndyCar's version of Monaco. You talk to some drivers that have competed in Monaco. It may not have the iconic turns that Monaco has, but when you get down to that fountain, to turn around the fountain, that's a classic venue to have a motor race at.
It's very cool to watch when you're down there. I can tell you, being between turns 1 and 6 and the way they work around Shoreline, it's an awesome place to be. Bruce, always good, but look forward to talking to you over the course of the weekend, all right?
Thank you.
All right, Bruce Martin, again, Auto Week magazine, also with the Verizon app for IndyCar, and Hope Springs Eternal, still wearing his White Sox shirt, hoping that this is the year, perhaps, for the Pale Hose. But
master of the
we'll
of the Green Egg Grill, too, if you follow Bruce on Twitter.
I think he's the master of any grill, really.
That's right. The 7 of Michaela Lotion with the spin in turn number 1, and didn't look like he made any contact. And a couple of places, Dave, 7, 8, 1. We've seen him overdrive it a little bit, and we've also seen them try to widen the walls a little bit at the exit of the hairpin at turn number 11.
Hey, this track is so narrow. Sometimes drivers are trying to gap themselves to really get a feel for what they have inside that car, and it's caused some chaos. Ed Jones out there trying to give himself a little room. He almost got run over a couple of times as well. So tough conditions here, but that's part of being at Long Beach year in and year out. This is what it's all about.
I think as the weekend progresses, the track will continue to get faster. The grip will go up. Be interesting to see, though, Dave, the work that they'll have to do tomorrow, and you wonder how much is going to translate, because they get 2 sessions in today, 2 45-minute sessions, and just the 1 session tomorrow before we go qualifying, and there's a pretty decent chance for a pretty decent amount of rain tonight.
And it's going to wash away a lot of that rubber. You would think anytime there's a little rain in the L.A. area, usually life stops anyway.
Right.
So, but we do expect some rain overnight, probably around after midnight or so out here West Coast time. So that's going to change some things as well heading into tomorrow and obviously qualifying in the afternoon.
Yeah, I heard one of the local weather prognosticators this morning make the statement that from this point forward, any rain that we get is a bonus, and it's simply not expected. 3 minutes remaining in this session, and again, a quick off and on for the 8 machine of Max Schilt. That's been a struggle for him in this session. He is currently 21st of the 21 cars. Dave, as we mentioned, a new livery on the number 9 machine, NTT Data, but Scott Dixon finds himself in a familiar spot. He's now P1 in this session.
Yeah, Scott Dixon, I think I talk about a little redemption from what happened in St. Pete, and Scott didn't have exactly a horrible weekend. He had a podium finish, finished 3rd at St. Pete, but I think they really had a shot at a win, and because of a caution that came out midway through the race, that really cost their opportunity to find victory lane as a champion at St. Pete. So Scott Dixon trying to make up some ground. Of course, he's good wherever we go. That's the bottom line. Scott Dixon quickest right now at 1:07 and change.
We mentioned 25 days since St. Pete. Maybe there might be a possibility that something could, and this is me speculating, don't have anything to go on here. Maybe something can be shoehorned into the schedule. Plenty of room for it. Maybe shoehorn's not the right term, but maybe something can be placed on the schedule if next year's schedule looks anything like this one. Now, having said that, Dave, let's face it, there's not been a lot of idle time for these teams. I know last weekend they woke me up at my home in Speedway testing at IMS. I don't mind that, mind you, but there's been a fair amount of time testing at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and at other venues.
Well, folks at Honda had a test session at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway trying to get things dialed in for the 101st running of the Indy 500, and then just last weekend, Chevrolet had one as well. They tried to have it on Saturday, but it just wasn't warm enough.
Right.
The conditions weren't proper enough for those guys to run on Saturday, so they ran on Sunday. And then a lot of these teams, a lot of the Honda guys came out at Sonoma and ran. As we see the number 5 of James Hinchcliffe now got spun around in turn 8. He's back on the road, back on the race course now, back on Seaside Way. But I think we'll see. And remember, they moved Phoenix this year to later in April because of the Final Four that the city was hosting out there. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Phoenix back earlier in the schedule.
Yeah.
That would help complete that gap in the IndyCar Series schedule.
Number 9 of Scott Dixon with an off as well. He's in the runoff area out of harm's way. He's waiting for traffic to clear before he re-enters the road course. And, where Phoenix is on the schedule this year, Dave, it's kind of a throwback to days gone by, and in terms of Phoenix being the oval that precedes the Indianapolis 500. Even though you have the Grand Prix of Indy in there, you at least get an oval in before you get to IMS for the 500.
I remember, what year was it? It was 01, I believe, when Roger Penske and Team Penske decided to make a run at the Indianapolis 500 again, and that was their first race preceding with the Indy 500 with Helio Castroneves and Gilles de Ferran.
Yep, and that was the year after of course, Chip had won with Juan Montoya.
That's right.
In 2000 at IMS. So time is about to expire on this first session. The next one, by the way, will come your way at 5 p.m. Eastern for those of you in that time zone. That's 2 o'clock local time. So 2 o'clock Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern this afternoon, session number 2. And then, of course, we'll have another session tomorrow morning at 10:45 local, 1:45 Eastern. And then we'll go qualifying at 3:25 local, 6:25 Eastern tomorrow. So still an adjustment period for all of us, I think, Dave, after having, the sessions last year being an hour and a half or so. They changed the tire allotment and the distribution. They shortened these sessions up, and I think so far the impact seems to have, I think, benefited the fans from the standpoint that there's a lot more track activity during the session.
And let's face it, that's what it's all about. If you're a fan coming out to these practice sessions, you want to see some action. You don't want to see guys sitting on the pit road for a good 20, maybe 30 minutes or so. A lot of action, which is good if you have a car that is running well. You have it all dialed in. You feel good about things. If you're chasing it, then it can become a long session. That's why, planning and engineering meetings well into the weekend. A lot of these guys had engineering sessions yesterday just to come up with a game plan for today and tomorrow and follow that plan to see if things don't go well, what is plan B or what is plan C. Right now, things are going awfully well for Scott Dixon, P1 here in this practice session.
Graham Rahal among those debriefing, as they all do as they climb out of the race cars. Be interesting as Jake and Nick hope to talk to a couple of drivers. But again, some of these debriefs, because of the short session and the fact that there's only one more, the drivers spend a fair amount of time in that debrief once they get out of the race car. So if we get a chance to chat with a couple of drivers, we will. But one of the things that I'd be interested in noting, Dave, you saw it as well on our monitor. I'm not sure I remember seeing cars get the front end off the ground as much as we saw in this session.
There was a lot of Helio Castroneves, namely, who, by the way, finished P2, second quick in this practice session. He and his teammate Will Power breaking up really what was a Honda party. Honda going 1 through 8 essentially, with Chevrolet breaking that up. So Honda now 6 of the top 8 in this practice session. But Helio Castroneves, namely, was really porpoising many times throughout some of the braking issues that he might have been having, or chasing anyway. But at the end of the day, though, into this practice session at a minute 7.7, just a tick behind Scott Dixon.
Simon Pagenaud, 3-time winner here, tumbled to ninth by the time we got to the end of the session. Let's get his thoughts. Jay Query's with him.
You got to like it when a guy can come and to take a selfie at Long Beach, all he has to do is take a picture of the sidewalk, right? I noticed you did that yesterday, Simon Pagenaud. So this is a track where you've had success. But take me through today. Does the track change much? Was there anything that surprised you today, perhaps?
Yeah, they've repaved the backstretch, turn 8, so it definitely changed the exit of the corner. It used to be bumpy. Now it's super smooth, very grippy, so the approach into turn 8 is very different. It's faster, a little easier to drive, unfortunately, but turn 9 is the same as it was last year. So overall, the track is always as beautiful as it always is here, and it's always a pleasure to come back here for our classic in Long Beach.
Lastly, let me ask you, because I know you got to go way in, but the gap between St. Petersburg and here, from a driver's standpoint, psychological, I know you were doing testing and you stay busy with it, but do you start chomping at the bit to get back in the race car? And does it maybe, perhaps, anything in terms of the layoff before that first race, does that drop off again a bit? Or is it like riding a bike for you?
I don't understand what you're trying to say, Jake. Say again.
In terms of the
Try to
layoff.
make it shorter sentence, too.
Yeah, okay. The layoff between races.
Yeah,
okay.
layoff, yeah.
Does it make it difficult to stop back to strap back into the car itself?
Oh no, not at all. We've been testing, and we have simulators these days that we use a lot. So no, it's you're back in the groove. Second race, I always feel better than the first one. So we're back in it, ready to go racing.
So the question was too long. The layoff wasn't. That's what we got out of it, right?
Exactly.
All right, I appreciate it. We'll let you go weigh in. Simon Pagenaud, guys.
And I don't think he minds the credit, but he's not a three-time winner. He's won it once, but not a three-time winner. So that was a nice effort on all of our parts, and with our defending series champion. But anyway, Dave, your thoughts and impressions, guys that we thought would be fast. We're fast at St. Pete, and then it looks like they've unloaded in pretty good shape here.
Well, you've got 3 Penske's breaking up what is essentially a Honda party. Joseph Newgarden, he finds himself way back in the pack as the fourth and final Penske driver at 14th. But once again, I mean, how many times do we see it going into a weekend on Friday? The Hondas show up. What do the Chevys have come Saturday and certainly on race day? But right now, the Hondas look awfully strong here on the streets of Long Beach.
2 o'clock Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. We'll be back with you for session number 2. The director of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Radio Network is Wally Levitt. Our on-site producer and engineer is Rick Evans. Great job, great stuff on pit road from Nick Yeoman and Jake Query. For Dave First, I'm Mark Janes. So long for now from the streets of Long Beach.
IndyCar Radio on the IMS Radio Network.
A.J. Foyt down the main straightaway. The checkered flag is out. A.J.'s hand in the air. He is the winner. A.J. Foyt at Indianapolis has won his 4th 500-mile race. A.J. Foyt, our winner. The flag will fly now for Tom Staba and then for Al Unser. We will be talking with